Bart Torvik's T-rank projections for 2026 have dropped. This is the first that I have seen these now that rosters are getting a little more finalized here. And Dion, it's got me unbelievably excited for next season because every single team that we cover passionately is featured here in the top 17 in the country. It's almost like this was cultivated, handcrafted just for Sleepers Media. I'm kind of terrified of where this is going to go. I'm going to read you the top 20 or so, and then we can break down our biggest takeaways. Houston is the number one team in the country for next season per Torvik. He has his answer. His model has his answer on the Houston versus Purdue debate. Houston at one, Purdue at two. Purdue also the number one offense in the country next season. Houston the number one defense. BYU at three. So the BYU hype is real per Bart Torvik. Michigan at four. The Michigan Wolverines are fourth per Bart Torvik. I have a note on this too that's coming later in this. Five Duke, six St. John's, seven UCLA. Big Ten love there. Eight Arkansas, a team I don't feel like is getting a lot of offseason hype, but the Razorbacks, eighth in the country here. Ninth, the UConn Huskies, Dan Hurley. 10, Tennessee. Kentucky at 11. Kansas 12. That's a surprising one to a lot of people. Louisville 13. Illinois at 14. Arizona 15. Michigan State holding down 16th. Not being talked about like that right now, but the Spartans at 16. North Carolina 17. And to round out the top 25, Iowa State, Florida, USC, Vanderbilt, Creighton, Ohio State, Missouri, Texas Tech, all the way down at 25. That's way lower than any of the preseason polls would have Texas Tech. There's a lot to unpack here, but God, that's a fun top 25 for our intents and purposes. What's your reaction?
This is, well, obviously my first reaction is this is very fun for us. There's a lot of teams that I wasn't paying attention to. So Arkansas at 8 is probably the first one that pops off to me where it's like, whoa, they're up there. Then when you pull the roster up, it's like, of course they're up there. Like this roster is sick. I think they have one of the best recruits coming in Darius Acuff as well. What's interesting about Arkansas, in my opinion, I think Cal is doing everything Kentucky fans begged him to do at Kentucky. And that's got to be like Kentucky fans are probably not frustrated because Mark Pope's been special this offseason and was special last year. But like there has to be some part of them that's like, dude, like I can't believe it took us breaking up for you to finally do what we've been begging you to do for a decade. So that's got to be a little frustrating. UCLA at 7, another one that's not getting enough love everywhere else, but I do think that is a top 10 team. Vanderbilt at 21, I think is the biggest surprise to me. Um, I can't believe they're on this list. I'm unfamiliar with their game. If they do finish top 25, I'll own it. I don't think that's a top 25 team personally, but I might be unfamiliar with their game.
Look how far 9-2 Vanderbilt has come. My AJ Hogarth led program. He saved the program. He changed the trajectory of it. You've got to give respect where respect is due. All right, can I just rattle off like 15 thoughts about this? Just
Absolutely.
gonna run through this. So, okay, Torvik has Houston 1, Purdue 2. I would guess all of the analytics services are gonna back this up. There's not much separating them. They're like 0.008 away from each other in the model here. There is a little bit of a dip to anybody else. And it's number one defense in Houston, number one offense in Purdue. Houston's offense is 19th, Purdue's defense is 21st. I think that's going to be the distinction. And until Purdue proves that their defense can take a little bit of a leap here, I think it's a fair skepticism point. I'm going to have Purdue 1 because I just believe they got the best player on the floor here, and I love the changes they made. But I think defense is still a question for Purdue with Clough and Mayer in the fold. They didn't really answer any athletic questions on this roster, whereas Houston is definitely a more loaded version of what they were last year, which has been a number one program per the analytics for like every single year for 5 years. So some proving ground for Purdue, I think, to make it up there. You can chime in on any of these as I go if you want. Just give me like one of these. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep flying through this.
I
That work?
got you. I got you. That works.
Okay, beautiful. BYU 3, love it. Love it. The hype is real. I think it's deserved. I think there's a world where BYU makes one more splash ad and actually rises all the way up to number one. But I just want to warn everybody we aren't manufacturing shit with this BYU team. This is real. This team has a very real chance to be the number one team in the country next year.
Can we go to Provo?
Yeah, we have to.
We have to go to
But
Provo.
I'm really adamant in all of these videos. I'm really adamant. I want to be flown out to Provo. Like I want them to roll out like a blue carpet and like I feel like Provo has such great gifts for people. They're so nice. So
Too many people have left comments saying like the whole trip would be on them if we came for us to pay for it, I think.
right, yeah, and like respectfully, I will never pay for myself to take a vacation to a dry county. That's
Yeah.
just not, it's not going to happen. So yeah, Provo, fly us out. We're ready. We're on the bandwagon. Okay, Michigan at 4. A lot of people are going to freak out about this if this becomes real. And nobody believes this team's a top 5 team in the country preseason, me included. But I think there's a pretty important thing going on here where like Evan Mia has Michigan as clearly the best portal class in the country. Torvik has Michigan higher than you would think. When Ken Palm drops, I bet you Michigan's higher than you would think. There's a lot of analytically great things that Dusty May has done this offseason. And I feel like somewhere along the way, people, I don't know, are skeptical of it because Cadeau is not a fun guy to believe in. Mara hasn't really done it before. Merez is not breaking out yet. He needs to actually get there. As long as Yaxel is in the fold, this Michigan team ceiling is a lot higher than I think people are talking about. And to that point, from this list, Michigan is the only team in Torvik's very early projections for next season with a top 10 offense and defense. And that is always a thing. If you go through the Ken Palm national champion list, you want a team that has a top 15, top 20 offense and defense. Michigan, the only one in this entire country for next year per Torvik with a projected top 10 offense and defense. I'm getting giddy just talking about it. Moving down this list. We interrupt this sleepers video to tell you about an offer from Underdog Fantasy. Cart, you love Underdog Fantasy, correct?
Of course I do. Can I have a moment real quick?
Please. Thank you for that. In fact, I'm going to cut you off because our listeners like when we keep these short and sweet. Underdog Fantasy. Sign up as a new user. Use promo code SLEEPERS. Get bonus funds up to $1,000, 50% of your deposit match. The NBA playoffs are rocking right now. I played Underdog last week with a Cade Cunningham line. I'm looking forward to doing it throughout the entire first round of the NBA playoffs, but there's more. You can place picks on golf. You can place picks on baseball. You can place picks on the NHL playoffs that are rocking right now. Join Underdog Fantasy, promo code SLEEPERS. Support this show so that we can keep bringing videos to you. Back to the video. I think UCLA is going to be really good. I've alluded to it a couple times, but Eric Daly was a star in the second half of the season. They got arguably the best point guard portaler in the country, Donovan Dent, probably the second best point guard in the entire sport. And then Tyler Bilodeau was like their leading star last year. That trio is probably as good as any trio in the country. They need some of the role players to hit, but 7th for UCLA feels totally fair. UConn at 9's a little lower than I would have them, but I think some of their pieces are so new, it makes sense that in a Torvik type site, they would be a little bit lower than expected. But for my liking, I have no issue. I would just push them up a tiny little bit. Kentucky at 11. Let's talk about this. This would have them as the third SEC team behind Arkansas and Tennessee. Please note, no SEC teams in the top 7. After having 4 of the top 5 teams last year, it seems like the SEC is destined to take a little bit of a step backward here. This reflects what I think Kentucky is. And they're a finished product. Mark Pope is saying we're done. I've been catching a lot of heat for being like, where's the star power? I think they're the 11th-ish best team. I've had them in the 6 to 10 range, but closer to 10 than 6 for me. Any thoughts on where Kentucky is placed here? I think that makes sense.
I like where they're at. I will point out if Kentucky, like some solace for Kentucky fans, some of the teams above them, Torvik still has players included that won't be on the roster. So like Duke's contributing players include Tyrese Proctor and Shelton Henderson. I'm not saying Kentucky's gonna jump Duke, but like once the next rankings come out, they might be closer to top 10.
Yeah, that's very fair. That's extremely true. Kansas at 12 is an interesting one. I might buy low on Kansas this year. Everybody wants off the Bill Self bandwagon, and like Darren Peterson rocks. Flory Badunga's an obvious breakout dude. Like I talked about how this class they added, it's kind of the opposite of what I'm arguing with Kentucky. So maybe I don't know. Maybe I should watch myself here. But I like that Kansas added all role players because they have their star. Darren Peterson is a guy I believe could captain a national title team. And I feel like that's the difference. Whereas Kentucky, no disrespect to Otaga Owe, I would have liked them to get the Darren Peterson type and then surround with role players. So I kind of see the vision with Kansas here at 12. I like that landing spot for them.
I want to buy low on Kansas with you, by the way.
Okay.
So I flew on a plane back from Phoenix with prolific prep, sat a row behind Darren Peterson, no big deal. He knew I knew who he was, but he also knew I wasn't going to say anything. So I feel like we were boys, like it was very clear I knew who he was, but I was going to leave him alone. Um, this is perfect for him. I think if you put a bunch of stars around Darren Peterson, I think you get a worse result. If you get him a bunch of role players, he's an Anthony Edwards. And this is just me judging the way he walked on the plane, by the way. But he's an Anthony Edwards. He's a Jimmy Butler. He's a Michael Jordan. Like he's an alpha. Like he's going to bring guys with him. He's going to make them better. He wants to be the alpha. He doesn't want to share that alpha spotlight. So I think I love this roster, what Bill Self is doing.
Yeah, I think it made a lot of sense the way they built that. Illinois at 14 sort of backs up again, where I think is a right landing spot. Like there are some folks that really believe Illinois is like a top 10 team right now. I don't buy that. I think they're still one more piece away from that. But 14th is like obviously a very competitive roster, can make a Final Four run, very good team. Michigan State at 16. Fifth best defense in the sport projected. I think that's how they're going to have to win games next year. So I don't hate this. I really don't. It's higher than I think most people would project just based off name recognition alone. I will point this out. The Trey Fort ad, Torvik projects to play only 18% of the minutes. So if Trey Fort is really only playing 18% of the minutes next year, I don't know what's going on at the shooting guard spot because that's the guy you brought in to play the shooting guard spot, presumably. But shit, if it lands you at the 16th spot anyway, I guess it doesn't matter, right?
Cart told me Kurt Tang leap.
Yeah, Kurtang, I think in this projection, 30 something percent of the minutes. So yeah, they have Kurtang 31% of the minutes, Trey Ford 18% of the minutes. They combine to play less than 20 minutes a game per Bar Torvik. And yet they're the 16th. That would be so Tom Izzo, right? Like we just, I don't know, like Nick Sanders is probably in the rotation and we're a top 5 defense.
I love Izzo. I love what Izzo does because he zigs when everybody else sags.
Yeah.
And I just love this about him. Also, Izzo, please keep coming to Warriors games. Whenever you don't show up, we lose.
Yeah, that's a little dicey. All right, last things for me. Texas Tech at 25, everyone would freak out and say is way too low. The other one that's way too low, I haven't even mentioned yet. Auburn at 27. The number one overall seed in the NCAA tournament with a big time dip here. Do you buy either of those teams as maybe nationally very overrated right now?
I think Tech should be higher, personally. I think Tech is a top 10 team in the country. Auburn, I think, is in the perfect spot. Um, Question mark on if Todd Pettiford's coming back, obviously, unless that's become official in the last like 48 hours. Um, no Chad Baker Mazara. I don't agree that they replaced Chad Baker Mazara. I think the guys they're bringing in to replace him are going to need a year to develop. I'm not huge on Keyshawn Hall. So like I like where Auburn's at on this list. If anything, I think it's a little, maybe even a little too high.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just a skeptic of pretty much all names on Auburn. Even if Pettiford's back, great. I would definitely put them higher if Pettiford's back. But everything else is like iffy. I think they're going to miss Baker Mazara more than they think. And then Texas Tech for me, I think this screams the one thing I've sort of reiterated to Cart. I think they need one more big fish. I love Christian Anderson. I think he's going to be a stud. Obviously, JT Toppin's the best big in the sport. Like you go down this list, Lawan Watts, Tyree Bryan, Donovan Atwell are the next three. I like Watts a lot. I don't really like anybody else outside of that top three. They have a Darion Williams sized hole in this roster. And there's a world where Darion Williams goes to Kansas, goes to BYU. I would love to see Texas Tech close on him to put them back in the top 10. But to me, there's some substance in the idea of like, oh, Tech's not a top 5 team in the country if they don't get Darion Williams. And this seems like the biggest gap between the metrics and the polls right now. The way too early polls is Texas Tech at 25. So we'll see. We're in line for a really fun year. That's the biggest takeaway for me. And can't wait to see it play out.